So Metroid Prime 4 has had a very rocky development. It's been completely redone, switched studios, and now apparently is going through some troubles. This comes from a business insider that claims that Metroid Prime 4 is nearly finished, but came to an unexpected roadblock that caused it to get moved from July all the way over to a November release date, or what's estimated to be November. In this video, I'm going to be going over all of that as well as my thoughts. So let's get into it. But before we do that, I'm doing a $70 eShop gift card giveaway. All you gotta do is comment down below in the comment section on this video and be sure you're subscribed. In the description is gonna be a comment sheet outlining all the valid comments for the giveaway, as well as some rules and regulations. Thank you guys so much for the support on the most recent videos, and I wish you the best of luck. So this comes from a business insider named Reese, also known as Kiwi Talks. He is a game developer interviewer, interviewed over 100 plus game devs, most well known by his interviews with Retro Studios, Valve, and Bethesda. Retro Studios being the key one because they are now developing Metroid Prime 4 Beyond. He originally teased some information regarding Metroid Prime 4 ahead of the Nintendo Direct Partner Showcase, saying, "People are asking me what's going on with Metroid Prime 4. I'm not saying anything just yet. My David O'Reilly interview is heavily circulating in game media circles, and anything I say about Prime 4 is just going to derail it. I will always try to be a man of my word, so I will honor it. I will give an update on Metroid Prime 4. It will be the last time I speak on it." And as someone that has interviewed and had close relationships with Retro Studios, it makes sense for him to have some sort of information. Then the Direct came and went, and then he posted this. I'm gonna go ahead and read this off screen while I have some gameplay of Metroid Prime 4 Beyond, going over basically what he's saying and then my thoughts as I'm talking about it. But a quick summary before we get into it. He's basically saying that Metroid Prime 4 Beyond got into a hiccup fairly recently, which then pushed the game back from what would have been a July release date. But let's get into detail, and I'm gonna read everything bar for bar from what he said. He says, "This is going to be a very long read because I have a lot I need to say and I have to try and be as clear as possible. Metroid Prime 4, the Retro Studio version, was for a period of time intended to be a cross-gen launch title just like Breath of the Wild. However, it was going to be a launch window title for Switch 2, but obviously that didn't happen. Your first clue is that the Metroid Prime 4 Out Now mural at London train station. The second clue is the Metroid Prime trilogy are being delayed." And if you guys don't know, I actually covered it the day it happened, but a train station in London was displaying Metroid Prime 4 Out Now. And what we all assumed that this was just a template mistake because it has a similar font, a similar location as the Out Now on Mario Kart World. But it is interesting to note that the outline of it, like the box it's actually sitting in, is more sci-fi-esque, and there's a lot more to it. It's not just a simple copy paste. But yeah, so this is what he's talking about when it comes to our hints to it being delayed. After playing through DK Bonanza and seeing how unpolished it is by Nintendo's standards, still really polished, just not the high bar Nintendo usually has, I personally think DK Bonanza and Metroid Prime 4 switched places, and Donkey Bonanza was moved from Q4 to compensate for Metroid Prime 4 being pushed back. This is me just speculating and not fact. And it was a little bit weird wording, but I believe they were talking about how Metroid Prime 4 was a little unpolished. And just not to the same quality as the other games. He said, "So what's going on? Well, I have to be careful here because if I get into specifics, it's going to open a can of worms. Some gamers aren't the most rational people at the best of times, so God knows what they'll do about a game 18 years in the making. I don't need their verbal outcry on my conscience. Basically, Metroid Prime 4 hit a snag. Now I am going to refer this snag as an anomaly, so this anomaly isn't that big of a deal usually. All of Retro's previous games dating back to Prime 1 have run into issues with this anomaly, but the anomaly was slightly different each time. However, the anomaly this time is a lot more severe than in previous games, and it is compounded by a second anomaly that seeped into the first anomaly. As the timing of this post, I'm unsure if these anomalies have been resolved. And there's a lot of anomalies there. But essentially, honestly, just from my point of view, I definitely think this has something to do with graphics. I think Metroid Prime has always pushed the limits of the Nintendo consoles it's been on. When they talk about any sort of anomaly, I think it has to be basically performance and graphics based. I'd be surprised if it is something different, because I mean, just looking at the gameplay footage now, this doesn't even feel like a Switch game. It is honestly pushing the graphic limitations of the normal Switch, and I'm honestly surprised it's running on it. That's just my assumption, and yeah, but apparently it got into a hiccup and then it just compounded into something bigger that maybe hasn't been resolved yet. He then says, what does this mean? Well, because of how non-transparent the video game industry is, gamers assume the worst because they don't know how game development works, as the only stuff that ever seems to come up about the industry is the trinity of layoffs, crunch, and bad management. That isn't what this is. It's more so Retro are working through a problem and is trying to resolve it. The nature of game development at times. Once again, not a big deal. Why is the marketing so weird? The marketing for this game has been weird because the anomalies, but it's also because of what's happened with its development. They have basically been trying to provide nuggets of info to fans to say, hey, don't worry, it's coming. Now, because of the backlash of Federation Force, Nintendo went against their usual philosophy of waiting till a game is nearly done to do marketing and announced Prime 4 early to show fans that they still care about this franchise. Obviously, because the first version got canceled, they had to restart it and push the game way further back than ever intended. So this weird marketing campaign is because of it. And honestly, I think he has some points there. I think Nintendo honestly learned their lesson from Metroid Prime 4, and I think went to the other extreme. It seems like the hype cycle and like the release reveal to the release date is about a month now. And I think Nintendo kind of learned from their mistake when it came to Metroid Prime 4, because, you know, it's been, what, 8 years now? So I think that's just Nintendo trying to learn from their mistake. I do not believe that Nintendo thought that they needed to basically say, hey, we care about this franchise because of Metroid Dread. I think like Metroid Dread put a lot of goodwill when it came to, oh, Metroid could be back again. Plus the Metroid Prime trilogy. But then again, those were all revealed afterward, I believe. But yeah, I don't know. Nintendo really never really cared about making fans believe they care about their franchise before, so I don't know why they would do it for Metroid. He then lists numbered points. The first one being, they announced the game way too early and then tried to compensate for this and the first canceled version of Prime 4 by providing small nuggets of info. 2, because the game isn't finished, I must stress it's extremely close to being done. They don't want to show too much of it and then it gets delayed again. Look out for a Germany rating for Metroid Prime 4. That's when you know it's done. They test a game when it's 100% completion, unlike South Korea where it needs to be 95% done. And it is worth noting, Metroid Prime 4 did get a rating in South Korea. Personally, I think they are going to be coy until they do a blowout of info and with the release date attached. This is a one-off scenario with Prime 4. Nintendo are never going to announce a game this early ever again. However, you do have to consider this. And then I'll get into that in just a second. And he brings out a really big point about a Nintendo Direct and a blowout of information. I think we've already gotten a lot of information when it comes to this game, but I could totally see Metroid Prime 4 getting a standalone Direct where they reveal amiibos, maybe even like a Switch 2 exclusive, like console itself, or maybe one thing that I think I want to take away from this section paragraph alone is him talking about a blowout of information. And we've actually already gotten a lot of information already from, you know, the Treehouse, from previous Nintendo Directs. But I could definitely see there being a Metroid Prime 4 Direct standalone. And I've actually said this in a previous video where I do think that Nintendo will be doing a lot more standalone Directs when it comes to games, just because I think they're really fun for one, and two, it just makes a lot of sense to focus on a single game. But I could totally see them doing a Direct, announcing the release date, as well as maybe some amiibos or a deluxe edition that comes with an art book or something similar like that, because of the amount of effort that they put into this game. And we're going to get into some rumors where they're talking about maybe Metroid Prime 5 being developed alongside this, or another Metroid game, because I'm pretty sure they're suspecting that this is going to be a 10-pull franchise. But let's get back into what he's saying. Nintendo are impervious to whatever the rest of the video game industry is doing. They march to their own beat of their own drum and do whatever they want. This isn't the GameCube era anymore. Prime 2 had a reduced schedule due to Nintendo needing to combat potential droughts. Nowadays, they do not care at all. They will delay a game for as long as they need to before it's up to snuff, for 2 reasons. Nintendo nowadays is known for finishing some games well in advance and sitting on them. 2, Nintendo is going to have best third-party support in its entire history with the Switch 2. So third parties filling the gaps, they don't have to worry at all. And then he says, don't let the partner showcase dampen your optimism. The big boys haven't come out to play yet. Honestly, I believe this. The whole third-party support, I think the partner showcase did not showcase enough of the third-party support that is actually showing for the Switch 2. I actually talk about this in another video where I say that the showcase wasn't that bad, but they're probably hiding the big titles for a general direct. So this is all making sense. Then he goes on to say, will Metroid Prime 4 be delayed to 2026? Honestly, I don't know. It all hinges on these anomalies being sorted. Retro is full of real talented people that seem to have a knack for circumventing difficult problems. I personally don't think it is going to be delayed, and I think they can hit a November release date. That is only speculation, not a fact, the November release date. But be warned, if Nintendo wants to delay it, they will delay it. They don't care if you get mad, because as soon as you get your hands on the game, they all know your anger will subside. You'll be overcome with joy and happiness. They don't react to an outcry, they block out the noise. All right, and then lastly, he says, I want to finish with this. I know there are a number of people who think this is all BS and that I do this for clout, and I get it. I put myself in your shoes. I can see how you have that perspective and have your reservations, especially now after the BeatEmUps experiment. But I assure you that this isn't what I'm trying to do here. All I have been trying to do as of late is provide context whenever I've seen false narrative gaining traction. And, you know, this is admirable of him. I think for some reason, there has been this narrative that Metroid Prime 4 Beyond was going to get delayed. I feel like it kind of came out of nowhere. But yeah, so I think he kind of saw this and be like, well, I gotta tell them something, because he seems to be good friends with Retro Studios, and I don't think he wants them to look bad. He says, I get no joy out of posting these tweets. I don't particularly like being the center of attention, and in a perfect world, I'd rather follow Eminem's lead. He posts music and then disappears, and I love to just post interviews and then disappear. But I mentioned before, a number of devs behind the scenes and reps from Google/YouTube have told me to put myself out there and share more of what's going on. It is only with Retro Studios Metroid that I seem to even have this problem. Anything else I post, the response is more placid. But I guess if there is one silver lining out of all of the drama, it's devs getting more time to shine. I think honestly this Metroid problem is because this is probably the only Nintendo game he really covers. Everything else is more Microsoft oriented. So our Nintendo fanboys be crazy. Then he closes out saying, anyways, that was a long read. Thanks to all the supporters who had my back throughout all of this. I will be recording a new interview soon, so keep an eye out for that. And I even have another former Retro Studios dev interviewed in the pipeline. One thing I wanted to point out, there was a comment asking, is this Anomaly something that the public is likely to ever know about? Is it something where we might be able to make a good guess as of what it was when we get the game ourselves? And then he says, no, it will never be public unless a former retro dev speaks out about it. And it is for a very good reason. There's absolutely 100% no good that will come out if it ever gets revealed. This isn't a retro problem. This isn't a retro only problem though. And yeah, that's his whole tweet, and was a really interesting read. The first time I read it, I was like, dang, that is interesting. I do think he has some solid points. I genuinely do think that this game might have, of course it was delayed. I mean, I think Nintendo is trying to make Metroid a 10 mil plus series, like a 10 pull, like alongside Zelda. I think they'd have Zelda, they have Metroid, they have Mario. And I could totally see them trying to do that here. A part of me thinks as well, there's like a rumored multiplayer mode that also could be this anomaly that they're speaking of, like some sort of online multiplayer mode that they're developing for it. I really don't know, but it's possible that could be the hiccup. One more thing I want to add was the rumors that Metroid Prime 5 is being developed almost concurrently with Metroid Prime 4, which could lend into the extended development time. I don't think that's the case, but he also said something like this. Metroid Prime 4 Beyond Studio will reportedly start Metroid Prime 5 after launch. And multiple people have said this. Reese, Kiwi Talks, this insider, has mentioned that it is speculation that they'll start Metroid Prime 5 after Metroid Prime 4. Nash Brittle actually said something back in February where he said to take it as a grain of salt, but Metroid Prime 5 will use the new control mechanics associated with the Switch 2 hardware, implying that the mouse mode may feature prominently, which, it's featured, I wouldn't say prominently in the Metroid Prime 4. It would be interested if, they do Metroid Prime 4 for Switch 1 and Switch 2, and then they lead it on a cliffhanger for Metroid Prime 5 that is a Switch 2 exclusive. It just depends what they do for the Metroid Prime franchise. I think they're putting a lot of faith into it, and I think their faith is going to get rewarded. I think Metroid Prime 4 Beyond is going to do amazing. That's just a theory. But honestly, after all of this, watching more Metroid Prime 4 Beyond gameplay, I just can't wait to play this game. Originally, I thought it was in September, but now I'm kind of leaning more toward November, maybe even end of October. I think that would be cool. But yeah, legitimately, this game looks amazing. If it has a multiplayer mode, this could be game of the year. I'm not gonna lie. Like, legitimately, I could see this maybe being up there. It depends how well the story is. I know with Silux, there's a lot of story implications. I vaguely follow the Metroid lore. But yeah, it's interesting. Retro apparently is having some hiccups, and Nintendo might be looking to them to be the permanent Metroid studio, which is something that they've been doing a lot, breaking up studios when it comes to Splatoon and Animal Crossing. So they have dedicated teams for each of those games. And now, why not have a dedicated team for the Metroid Prime, or just Metroid in general? But let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. I hope you guys like this. This is a fairly long video. It was a long article, but I legitimately had fun making this. So yeah, if you guys want to hear more Metroid Prime, or if you guys want to hear more Metroid content, don't forget to let me know in the comment section down below. Subscribe if you haven't already. Been doing daily Nintendo content. And thank you so much, Evan and Jesus, for being channel members. I will see you guys tomorrow. Goodbye.